Okay, I'm now going to add a few more objects to the game world. Let's try to click here and click on this X so that I am now looking at the game world from this perspective. I'll zoom in a little bit. I use the hand tool to change my perspective a little bit. And I'm going to come over here to My Assets Prefabs. I'm going to drag this doorway and we'll stick it, just kind of placing it here. Zooming on it, I'll click F, and then I'll use the hand tool to position myself. So I'm just going to orient this a little bit. We'll change the rotation. And here, I'll just change this to a -90, so we're looking at it head on. And you can see this, there's a brick texture that's kind of transparent. Come down here to My Assets Materials. I've prepared a more solid brick texture. There we go. Here's a wood texture that I'm going to drag, and I'll put it on that part of this item. There's actually another side to this. I'm going to hold down Command and rotate this around. There we go. A nice even 180 degrees. And it's a little high, so I'm going to lower it down so it's even with the top of the hedge. And now that we've got this placed, I can Command D to duplicate it, and W to get the arrows, and I will drag it back a couple steps. And I'm just creating another little element there. Remember we placed this coin up here that's too high to reach? Well, I will select that, focus on that, back out with the mouse a little bit. Try to come around to add it from this angle. There we go. I'll click now on another prefab, and we'll get this prefab stair unit, and can place it there. The orientation is not right, so I'll hold Command down and get that orientation. Move it there. Okay, so now we have kind of a back entrance to the coin. There are a couple things we need to pay attention to, though. Come around over here so we can walk through this walkway. This doorway rather, is not solid. I haven't added a collision mesh to it. And likewise, this stair unit that I added is not solid. So we can fix that by, with the stair unit selected, add component, and we're going to give it a mesh collider. Instead of a box collider, which would make kind of just an invisible cube around this stair unit, you wouldn't be able to walk up the slope. And now when I come over here and select the doorway, click on that, I want this also to have a mesh collider. I'll add one to this one. Now that I've added a mesh collider to these, now when I duplicate this one, Command D, drag that back, that one should already have a mesh collider attached. So let's just make sure of this. So now when we play it, yep, the doorway stops us. It's solid. And let's hope that the stair unit lets us walk up it. Okay? Now, it doesn't let us walk up there. We have to jump to go up there. We can get that coin. That's because our player is, there's a setting on the player. Go to player. That is, where is it? It is step offset, which is 0.3. We change that to 0.4. Let's try that. What that does is, if you come to a step, it will smoothly let you just walk up that step without having to jump. and we just changed the value. So now we should be able to, yeah, there we go. Now we can just walk up that. It automatically steps you up that gap without making you have to jump up that gap. Okay, so I think the next thing that we should do is add the ability to shoot projectiles. A big part of first-person games like this is the ability to shoot things, so we'll add a gun and the ability to fire projectiles into this world. And I'm just going to eyeball it because there are kind of a lot of fiddly details, but then after I've done that, I'll point you out for the numbers you need to type in to get the various components in exactly the right place. So first what I want to do is I want to get so that I am lined up behind my player so that I'm looking along this z-axis. So I'm going to click here. Now I'm in front of the player. I want to rotate around. Okay, now I am behind the player, looking in the same direction as the player's z-axis. So I'm going to come in here, and under player, with it selected, I'm going to create a 3D object that's a cube. And I'm going to just back out a little bit. We can't see the cube because we're right on top of it. So I'm going to now, I'm looking at this player from a side view, I'm going to drag this cube so that I can actually see it. I'm going to scale it so that instead of being this big, this is actually going to be tiny. Okay, we just want a little tiny thing. Now again, I'm going to get behind this cube, so I'm looking along the z-axis. See, there's a little tiny guy. I want to make him or her closer to the player so that it just appears in the player's view. And I want to make it even closer, so I'm going to look at it from the top. I want to bring him in very close, and here we are. Now we are looking from behind the z-axis, and I've lost my guy. Where is he? This is what I was talking about being rather fiddly. Okay. There we go. And okay, that looks pretty good. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to see that the position of this cube, which is going to be our, we'll rename it, oops, click on there, rename that, pew pew, and I've placed it at this location, and we're going to place it as a child of the first person character, not just a child of the player, right? And then under this, I'm going to, whoops, I hit rename there. Under this, I'm going to create an empty, which is just a placeholder object. I'm going to rename that bullet emitter. Okay, and so we've got a little hierarchy here. The bullet emitter is the place where the bullets will appear. This is a representation of the gun, and that's part of the first-person character, which is part of the player object. So that hierarchy is actually important for the way this all works. So now we need to make something to shoot, and I'm feeling non-violent today, so we're going to use a book as our thing that we fire. In order to make this book prefab able to be used as a bullet in the game world, I need to do a couple things to it. So I'm going to add a box collider, which will make other objects not penetrate it. And I'm also going to add a rigid body so that it can interact with gravity. And by default, objects that you create in Unity have a mass of 1, but a book is not that massive, so we'll give it a mass of 0.2. And now this is a little bit tricky, but in order to make this work, I have to take this book object, and you can get a look at it by, you can see it's some textures that I downloaded and put together. In order to make this work, we have to drag this book from here in the hierarchy. I'm going to make a copy of this book under Prefabs. I want to make it a prefab variant and rename it Book Projectile. And now we need to set a couple things up. I'm going to select the Pew Pew gun. I'm going to click here under Assets, My Assets, Scripts, and this is a script called click mouse to fire. I'm going to drag that onto my Pew Pew gun, and now we have a couple things down here. We have a slot for the bullet emitter and a slot for the bullet. The bullet emitter, which tells Unity where bullets will appear, goes here under bullet emitter, and the thing that we're using for the bullet is this prefab book projectile, not the original book, but book projectile. Okay, and then we need to give the bullet a forward force, and about a 500 works. So let's see whether that works. Okay, here we go. We're now able to fire books. We can try to knock crates over, and I do not have the book bullet set up to interact with the coin, but there we go. If you feel like you want to shoot books, you can. Something that I found while I was practicing with this game, an earlier version, I accidentally forgot to set my book projectile so that it interacts with gravity. And I actually like this a lot better. If I turn gravity off and play it again, now, you know, you still fire the books as normal, but the books just kind of float and bounce around, and I don't know, this was kind of hypnotic and enjoyable, and, you know, strange, I suppose, but I guess I was kind of charmed by this and thought you might find it amusing. So I'm going to hit escape and pause this game again. I think I'll make the book a little bit more massive. I think 0.2 is a little bit too small. And I'm going to, just kind of for fun, I'm going to select I'm going to create another object. It just doesn't really matter where I'm going to put it. Let's do game object, 3D object. I'm going to create a capsule. Okay, there it is. I'm going to drag it up kind of high. I'm going to scale this up 5 by 5 by 5. I'm going to drag it up so that it's just touching the ground, and I'm going to give it a material, give it a nice brick material so it looks like a big massive thing. I will add a component, which is the rigid body. I'm going to give it a mass of 1,000 because it's a big thing. And here in the game world, I'm going to click maximize on play. And now, when I play this game, you can kind of see it in much more appreciative glory, and the fun that comes from playing with physics in Unity is really quite delightful. There's really no purpose in this, but if you feel like you want to knock this thing off the game world, fire some books at it to help out. There you go, and we can just watch that guy. Oh, what did he stop on? Bumped into something. Bumped into some more shapes. All right, well, maybe I'll just jam myself in here and use my massive strength to jump this guy out of the way. Okay, something else, I will allow you to be creative on this if you'd like, but let's do Command D, and we'll duplicate that. And I think you can see where I'm going with this, because why the heck not? All right, well, I hope you enjoyed just learning the basics about how to use the Unity game engine to create a 3D game. There we go. All right, there's something very satisfying about this. I hope you enjoy it. Okay, well, if you have any questions or you'd like to know more about Unity, please feel free to leave comments. You can contact me on my blog, and I will be happy to share your journey through the next phase of Unity game development.